Bloody Red. Long before Emilia Montgomery became a hunter, she lived a naive, assuredly safe life. The life of easy prey, sorely unaware of the bloodthirsty killers lurking in the woods. To all who knew the ways of the predator, her velvet Red Riding Hood seemed destined to be drenched bloody. The wolf in the woods saw the girl as an easy meal, one that could be tricked into an ambush. Yet Emilia had a trickster's cunning of her own, and when her life was put on the line, naivety dissipated like vapor, giving way to the desperate needs of survival. Unlike the stories often told, she overcame her cruel nemesis, slaying the beast and skinning him. With her new bloody red hood came the soul of the wolf, turning her veins ice cold. She was prey no longer, and had even bigger predators to punish. Burned Marshall. In 1871, Biela's comet fell from the sky, shattering into 1,000 pieces above the state of Wisconsin. In the aftermath of the comet's fragments causing mayhem and destruction, the deadliest and most ferocious wildfire ever recorded in human history would rage through the countryside. In the midst of these roaring flames, among the smoke and charred flesh, a nameless boy found himself captivated by the fire's endless consumption. He studied the language of the flames, learned its desires, and now, captivated by its unusual nature, he seeks to understand the mysterious inferno that ravages the southern state of Louisiana. Butcher's Cleaver. Reginald Valmont, obsessed, insane worshipper of the corruption, driven to the bayous by calls and whispers from beyond our world, he found his destiny cemented in the call of insects from within the murmur stone. This relic would become the bane and boon of his existence, as he dedicated to mold himself in the image of the sculptor, driven by a mad desire to become its avatar within our world. He vowed that as the corruption's emissary, he would, along with his pack of demented followers, destroy the false idols of the corruption, annihilate anyone attempting to stem its tide of shadows, and ultimately become its dark crusader who would usher in the age of reckoning by letting the sculptor swallow our realm. Cardinal Rain. Opposed to the corruption in every sense of the word, Cardinal Rain dedicated herself to the ceaseless pursuit of its eradication across Louisiana. Through sheer determination, she has tracked what she deems as the source, a creature born from curse and rot. Following its vile stench throughout the bayous, she is more than ever determined to kill it. Yet as she found the rotten monster upon their final confrontation, in the beautiful clash of bone, guts, and sinew, she discovered something within the belly of the creature. Something else. Something not of this world. She realized that the source of the rain that had corrupted the bayous might not have been this simple creature after all. Captain Lafitte. Berman Lafitte, tossed overboard and left for dead as an infant, was saved by nothing short of a miracle, as he, mere inches from death, was recovered in the water by a passing-by steamboat. However, the saving of his life would turn out a curse rather than a blessing, for his enduring connection to the sea would bring him a myriad of miseries over his long and storied life. It seemed all he did was doomed to wreckage, from his youth spent abused by drunkards in New Orleans, to his Union Navy ship sinking in the Charleston harbor to his fractured relationship with a wife and his child. The sum of all that Burman Lafitte represented found its way into ruin in time, until he was left the shell of a man relegated to captaining a steamboat in the murky waters of Louisiana. Yet even in this ignoble existence was more than Lafitte deserved in the eyes of fate. In October of 1893, the Cheniere Caminada hurricane took the captain and his ship the Delphine from this world, transporting them to another realm, one of timeless rot and shadow beings. He abandoned the ship as it crossed between worlds, leaving behind his crew in a selfish attempt to escape, and here he would spend countless eternities in the land of the dead, slowly driven mad by the ever-encroaching, tick-tocking wear and tear of the weight of time. His body was ripped apart by the crawling scavengers of the sea, then pieced together by an even more wretched, forsaken soul. A woman by the name of Lynch. The witch brought the captain back from the land of the dead, where he fell in with Mr. Cherry and his infernal machinations. Just as anything else in Burman Lafitte's cursed existence, this alliance would not last either. The captain's impropriety quickly led to a second death, skewered through the eye by Mr. Cherry's cane as a result of his insolence. It would be his third death that would grant salvation from his tormented life. Traveling back to the land of the dead during the height of the desolation, he sought out the ghost of the ship he had abandoned, the Delphine. Here, the disgraced captain found absolution in its embrace, as his body and his soul burned to ashes for his sins. Coal Bearer. The bayou sky shifted, and the North Poles shifted to match. Ashen snow heralds the coal bearer's journey southward, for heavy is the head that wears the crown, but heavier is the sack on the back of the man who judges good from bad. Corvid, Brood, and Bile. Emma Davis and Maxwell Creed, two tormented souls, each with a sick devotion to macabre science. Apprentices of the infamous plague doctor, they are deprived and twisted, lacking any measurable shade of ethics or moral, as well as degrees and doctorates. Drawn to the bayous by the call of their mentor, their sick and perverted fascination with the potential for otherworldly mutilation has drawn them into the realm of the sculptor's corruption, more than ever curious to study and unveil its biological secrecy. Gar. Caught in the Cheniere Caminada hurricane, also known as the Great October Storm in 1893, Ma almost became a victim of nature's will as she was swept into the deep waters by the ferocious winds. Beneath the salty waves of the storm, she was met by a slough of saber-snout garfish that granted her visions of reptile birthing pits and extinct rituals. Reborn in the storm, Gar now carries with her the knowledge of untold prophecies devoted to hunting the creature known as Rotjaw, hell-bent with relentless intention to set free both herself and this beautiful creature from both of their suffering. Ghostface. No one can recall Nehemiah Hexum's face before he put the mask on. However, hunters know the faces of his victims all too well. In each twisted and open mouth, they can hear the echo of the cry that once lived there. Grotesque. James Master was once an innocent man, framed for a grisly murder too horrible for words. he lost his freedom to forged evidence and an enraged mob demanding justice. He lost his innocence to a decade of isolation as time wore away his memory and identity to the point he forgot he committed no crime. He lost his mind to agonizing torment, restrained in a dark pit and fed only rotten chunks of flesh through the holes in a heavy iron mask. When Felice broke apart the prison that held him, a grotesque lunatic emerged from darkness, one who lost his reason to hold back animal desires for cruel retribution and grisly murders too horrible for words. Harvest. When the annual harvest came to Louisiana, the bountiful fields found the loyal workers corrupted, the undead farmhands no longer capable of collecting the spoils of the season. Crops wilted and rotted in abandonment. In time, almost nothing grew. Almost. In the late month of October 1895, when the hunters who traversed the Deadlands reported gourds growing where nothing else would, they discovered pumpkins carved with ghoulish faces by fiends unknown, whispering and begging to be smashed into pulp, to be destroyed until nothing remained. Their sickly sweet scent could draw men in and bewilder them with ecstatic feelings of joy and pleasure, enough to make hunters lose their senses for hours. Avoidance worked for a time, but it wasn't enough. The pumpkins were right. They had to be destroyed for the sake of all hunters' sanity. The following year saw the rise of a second incursion of corruption, a foreboding prospect previously unheard of, one that would have unknown repercussions. When the next harvest arrived, it came alongside a mysterious man who took its name for himself, forsaking his old identity to rise out of the rotten reaping grounds, bearing a pumpkin mask and the forbidden knowledge of dire omens. This walking harvest had tampered with the forces behind Darkside, becoming an avatar of its occult power as he worked to weaponize the corruption with new supernatural tools. Hunters flocked to his side, inspired by his power, though it came with the maddened carnage of the season, this harvest of ghosts, souls, men, and gourds alike. Had the pumpkins that so sweetly incensed men found a being that could enact their true, twisted will? Or had this man delved deep enough into the method of the season's madness that he could steal its force for his own ends? It is thought that only one woman knows the true man behind the harvest mask. Hayali. Like the dancing shadows of his puppet show, Hayali's true past is shrouded in fantastical tales of opposing forces. The Turkish puppet master's split mind embodies both part of his lead characters, the witty but impulsive Karagus, ever the troublemaking trickster, and the haughty but level-headed Hachivat, who navigates trouble with a steady and sophisticated manner. In mirroring Hachivat, Hayali was once an aristocrat, heir to the throne of the whole Ottoman Empire, yet a prisoner kept under protective house arrest by none other than the Sultan. To escape this royal cage, he staged a fight with a guard, both men mutilating each other's faces beyond recognition. Abandoning his former identity, Hayali traded places with the man, great freedom at the price of great power. In mirroring Karagus, Hayali was once a low-born soldier, heroic and well-regarded, yet of no importance. He fought and bled on the battlefield with his fellow men, and in times of rest, entertained them with shadow plays taught by his father. Though it suited his talents and proclivities, it could not last. Trouble caught up to the puppeteer, threatening to reveal his darkest secret. Hayali fled across the world, abandoning his identity yet again. In America, both sides of him searched for a place to belong. Theatrical troupes, carnival fairs, and even circuses were joined, but all failed to fulfill his forlorn desires. Hayali finally found that missing piece in the bloodshed and trickery of the hunt, where he could toy with men's lives as puppets in the deadliest play. When he was brought at gunpoint to Mammon's Gulch by butchers Cleaver and the beekeeper, Hayali took on the persona of the demented, mirroring his captors. He played their game for a time, following their quest for absolution and revelation in the sculptor's ways, and his theatrical act came to a crescendo as the trio captured the researcher Harold Black. Seeing a way out, the mad puppeteer put on the performance of a lifetime, telling a desperate tale of a personal vendetta against the researcher, one that demanded a private and prolonged execution. Pulling the strings of the demented duo worked like a charm, winning Hayali and Harold Black both of their freedoms back. Hexbreaker. A famous inquisitor of covens and experienced vanquisher of dark corruptions, the Hexbreaker was called to the hunt to aid the witch hunter in her quest for revenge. He shares in Cersei Elias's mission to hunt down Lynch, the witch who massacred her family and destroyed the witch hunters of New York. In the Hexbreaker's eyes, Lynch's rise to power and the spread of corruption into Colorado is an indictment of the American Hunters Association's careless handling of Louisiana. All that they have allowed, the madness of monstrous witches, the spreading infection of the sculptor, it shall all be put right by the justice of his practiced hands. Iron Bark. Orphaned in a deadly winter as a young and helpless child, Ironbark's first memories were of the hungry eyes and snarling teeth of wolves. What should have been a gruesome end became a newfound family as the beasts took the child into their pack out of pity. Seasons passed as the wolf child, who not once saw itself as human, learned how to survive in the wild. Ironbark proved to be a poor hunter of prey, but a prodigious killer of men, slaughtering a dozen woodsmen in less than a week to feed the pack for months. Yet nature was the cruelest teacher, and it still had many lessons to give the feral child. The elder wolves who had first brought Ironbark in passed away, and the young pups scattered to make their own territories. Once more, the wolf child was orphaned. Further, they were now hunted. Villagers demanding retribution scoured the forest for years, seeking to put down the monster that had killed their families. Adolescents passed in a frantic, fearful frenzy, starving the wolf child over seasons of unending pursuit that stripped them from all of their senses. Ironbark's first hearty meal in years came at the height of this ferocious desperation as the feral wolfman feasted upon the first thing they could catch, heedless that it was one of their old brethren from the pack in which they grew up. Thus began the second hunt, the second family demanding retribution. On the peak of a mountain, surrounded by their old brethren, the wolfman abandoned all guilt and resolved to survive at any cost. Ironbark descended alone, covered in fresh furs of their past life. It would not be the last time Ironbark chose a treacherous survival over the bonds of family, for when Felice and her primal pact came to a precarious standoff, against Sheriff Hardin and his lawful pact over the kidnapping of the statesman. Ironbark betrayed the primals for coin, tipping the balance in the sheriff's and the statesman's favor. John Victor. John Victor, or John Volkel, a man with many names, followed by even more legends. Well known within the small world of bayou bounty hunters, he is a walking tall tale, both famous and infamous for his experience and veterancy. In his service to the American Hunters Association, he was tasked with tracking, recruiting, and training new initiates by whatever means he saw fit. Coercion and forcefully pressing promising hunters into the occult war was never off the table for John, yet what garnered him most of his reputation was his attempt to chase down the twins, the two protégés of Lynch herself, a sequence of events that would take him across the state of Louisiana, which would not only allegedly leave him cursed, it would also make him the subject of dramatic depictions in several well-known dime-piece novels and urban legends. Kendoka. It is said that the way of the samurai is found in death. In the long period of peace in Japan, death did not come so easily. Those who could not bear to live without it turned to lethal tournaments between warriors, shobu death matches, where honor and disgrace balanced on the edge of a bloody sword. Kendoka was one such combatant, a man best described as following the way of the sword with heroic courage and lethal conviction. For decades, he emerged victorious from countless duels, his record of victories as stained red as the tournament's grounds he fought on. In a mix of pride and greed, he collected trophies from slain opponents, pieces of armor and weaponry to remember his deeds. In time, his reputation earned him a prestigious standing, the personal bodyguard of a callous and cruel warlord. Kendoka could not stand the man and bided his time until a dangerous opportunity arose. The warlord was skewered with the same bamboo sword Kendoka had used to defeat so many other, far greater opponents. Kendoka fled across the sea, taking with him his treasure trove of weaponry as a mix of pride and greed, added to the new spoils of war to his collection. In the New World, this unmatched duelist found an even more chaotic and deadly bloodsport to join in on, this time participating in the ultimate risk to gain the greatest rewards among mankind. Mountie. Among the Northwest Mounted Police, Sergeant Jeffrey Forsyth was an exemplary trooper. He was worse than a bloodhound once he caught the track of a fugitive, and he always got his man. His strict enforcement of the law, empowered with a natural talent for violence, served as his own brand of justice in the western frontiers of Canada. Those talents were put to the test when he heard about local camps in the territory being brutally razed by bandits. He rode out alone against orders to put a stop to it himself. After a night of searching, he found the crazed cultists of the Demented Pack who had traveled so far from Louisiana in order to spread the domain of their god, the sculptor. Upon witnessing their profane altar of human corpses and maddening chanting, Sergeant Forsyth opened fire with everything he had, struck with Evil Part's disgust and abject terror. When the smoke cleared, he alone remained among the slaughter, stupefied by the gruesome scene around him. When his fellow troopers caught up, they locked the frantic, shaking sergeant away for his own safety. The only visitor to his cell in the coming days was a mysterious man who demanded to know everything Jeffrey saw. Dutifully, he shared everything he saw and was rewarded that night with a chance at freedom. However, a chance with a terrible price. John Victor, who had tracked the demented north, subtly pushed for Jeffrey to take action with occult whispers, saved him from imprisonment by slaughtering the other Mounties and breaking Forsyth out, making both of them fugitives on the run. When they finally stopped to rest, John Victor injected Jeffrey with the inoculation and explained the American Hunters Association, which he had just been forcefully inducted into. The Mountie could never return to his order after the massacre that had freed him, and the ritual blood in his veins would never go away. The only choice he had left was to commit himself to the hunt, strictly enforcing his brand of justice on the sculptor's monstrosities and the demented cultists who worshipped them. Pappy Redneck. Vernon Moses, the elder patriarch of the Moses family and former proprietor of Moses Poultry, was just as spirited, stubborn, and slightly mad as his son William and his granddaughter Millie. A lifetime ago, he served as a soldier in the Civil War, and local rumors spread that he had spent every day since in the same rocking chair drunk on moonshine and belligerently berating all within earshot. He proved all the idle talk wrong when he followed his son into the hunt, and the family business began piling bounties up around them. Scourge, Morrigan, and Midian. The origins of the monster known as Scrapbeak are mired in betrayal and subjugation, though it is no surprise that those who would seek to be acolytes of that creature would suffer the same fate. The first two disciples of the beak were cut down by that cowardly third. That third would grow to amass a powerful and demented flock, only to lose it all at the hands of two manic lovers. Morrigan and Midian, forever branded outcasts and monsters, found their true selves by embracing the darkest parts of each other's hearts. With an unbreakable bond, lust for power, and penchant for traitorous bloodshed, the paramours carved a path of carnage through Scrapbeak's cultists until only they alone remained. They were the perfect disciples of damnation, the only two to fit the honor of Scrapbeak and his creator, the sculptor. Bound together in body, soul, and demented purpose, the couple would either ascend beyond Scrapbeak to exist as corrupted gods, or once again suffer betrayal and subjugation as so many had before. Seawolf and White Raven. Though the Vikings had been dead for centuries, their legends carried with them a power available to those who could harness and embody the Norse myths. The man known as Seawolf coveted this power, turning himself and his sister into Viking legends in a quest for treasure, excitement, and glory. His sister, Hulda Chronic, shared few of his desires, but just as much of his dark cravings. She went along with his schemes as the White Raven, in her own quest for honor, facing respected hunters in noble duels that fed her sinful bloodlust. The pair were equally inseparable and insufferable to each other. They fought over a favorite rifle until Seawolf made a second. Then they fought with the rifles, pointing them at each other at the height of heated arguments in the middle of the hunt. Hey there, Hazmat here. This was only part 2 in the segment covering the legendary hunters within the world of Hunt Showdown, and part 3 is already in the works, so stay tuned for more content down the line. As always, a big thanks goes out to the Hunters Lounge, specifically the exclusive Gitchy Boy, the exclusive Johnny Sevens, the exclusive War Monk, and the exclusive Rat. The VIPs, Corvo Bearslayer, Derivative, Doc Powell, Gino Lucero, Goose, Hambone, Jiminal Bob, Corey Peterson, Michael Thornhill, More Death Menace, I, Slip, Stas Piestic, Sunrise Phoenix, TJ Crane, Texas Toast, and the Wizard of Copper, and of course, all the regulars. I would also like to give a big shout out to Rye for constructing the script to this very video. If you want to support me in the channel, consider signing up as a member, either here on YouTube or on Patreon, for as little as $1 a month. Link is in the description below. And thank you all for watching. I'll see you in the next one.